Welcome to the Fantasy Cycling Podcast, featuring your hosts, Grant Gardner and John Anderson. Chapeau, you're in the mix.
Welcome to part two of the Fantasy Cycling Podcast preview episodes for Tour de France 2025. I'm John Anderson speaking with my friend Grant Gardner. How are you, Grant?
Doing great. It's a big week. We've finally got the start list finalized, ready for the tour. I think it's a sign of the times if EF got it well in before the deadline, and Ineos was the last team to announce their final roster.
Yeah, maybe more of a sign that Ineos didn't know who the heck they were going to take.
Yeah.
And was
Well,
still figuring it out at the last minute. But maybe we'll take that as the worm has turned on our EF joke.
yeah.
Did I
Time
use
to,
that? Did I just use that appropriately?
I don't know what you just said,
Right. Grant, you look
but
resplendent today. You've got
I've got the old polka dot t-shirt that one of our buddies picked up at the tour last year. And I've got my Rafa coffee mug, and I'm ready for the big preview.
well, you look great, man. You look ready to win, ready to win the pot.
Hope so.
Um, well, let's begin, Grant, by looking at the start list. As you mentioned, everybody has dropped their lineup now at this point. We're talking on Wednesday, July 2nd. Um, and not too many surprises, but I wanted to kind of go through some of these teams um, without spending too much time going through um, rider by rider or necessarily arguing about whether or not they're the best possible team out of their rosters that they could bring,
Yeah.
but more so noting, what can we glean from um, the approach that this each team is taking to the tour. I think it's appropriate to start with UAE. They're taking Pog, probably the second or third best rider, maybe to line up also with Almeida, which will be in support. Narvaez, Pollitt, Sidakov, Soler, Wellens, and Yates. Really strong team, singularly focused on the GC as usual. Visma is the same, Grant, with their
Yep.
focus. These are the two. These are your two GC Titans. So Jonas, of course, setting up their GC ambitions, and then they're taking Affini, Benute, Victor Campenaerts, Matty Jorgensen, Seth Kuss, two American lads on the team, Wout van Aert and Simon Yates. So anything to know other than, hey, these guys are both bringing mountain trains. I think you could probably argue that UAE's is the stronger mountain
Yeah.
train. Visma this year have got Sepp Kuss, who they didn't have last year, which is notable, I think.
Yeah. My only comments there would be one from a fantasy perspective. It's nice because you know exactly what they're fighting for. It's not like, is he going for GC? Is he going for stages? They've got two clear GC guys. If you do want to take somebody else from their team, I think it wouldn't be a bad strategy to take an Almeida or a Jorgensen based off of their ability to win stages or be up there on stages. Um, I guess my only comparison between the two teams is, Vispa's probably a little tired. You've got Van Aert and Yates that did a really good Giro. Do they have enough matches left to do a really good tour? And then UAE, they might have benefited from taking a Vermeers or somebody like that for that first week in Dunkirk with a lot of like kind of classic stages. But overall,
Mhm.
two best teams.
I think you could go. I could squabble with one comment there from you, Grant. Is I don't. I did have spent a little bit of time thinking about whether or not I wanted to take an Almeida, and I
Hmm.
thought about this. And actually, on these two teams, I like to shy away from taking a second rider from them, just because um, they're so focused
Yep.
on their leaders, and it hasn't paid off for me in the past, but it can. Like a UAE in a Vuelta or a Giro, that strategy can definitely pay off for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's a good point. I think most of the points are going to be concentrated with Pogačar or with Vingegaard. Um, and you'll see that historically. We went through y'all should, if you haven't listened to our previous podcast, we went through the previous Tours de France. Um, Typically, it's the top two on GC that are on the best team. And then you've got like somebody that was fourth or fifth that was a really strong rider, like an Evenepoel. Um, but typically it's not a teammate. Like if Almeida finishes even third, he's not going to get all the stage points because Pogacar was mopping those up. So
hmm.
look at Quick
That's
Step.
Yeah, let's go to Quick Step next, because probably odds on favorite to round out the podiums. Just looking at scratch here, you've got Quick Step with Remco. Um, I think the media reports tell that he's a little lighter.
Yep.
Coming out of where was he at? He was at Dauphiné. He didn't necessarily overly impress in the Dauphiné, and seemed like a step behind Jonas and Hog. But I recall last year it was a little bit the same for him, where he showed up, just like 4 or 5 weeks later at the tour looking a lot leaner and a lot meaner.
Yep.
Um,
He's definitely meaner. If you look at the Belgian championships, he was yelling at the motorbike, yelling at Philipsen, like he's ready to go.
and it's I personally love that stuff just as a fan,
Yeah.
and I think it's funny, and it adds to like the character of Remco. But can he take that next step and get a hold of his emotions? Can he harness those emotions to kind of when looking at the arc of his career when he first started riding the Tour de France? I think these were typically, it's the 2025 um, for the 2026 tour, where Quick Step probably in their like 5-year plan for him. They were like, okay, here's where we take a crack. But they've got a once in a lifetime talent with Pog on UAE. He'll definitely be riding for a podium and be happy with it, I think, even though he might not say
Yeah. And
that in the press.
if you look at the
But they're taking a
compositions,
sprinter.
yeah. So one, Lando was supposed to be here, so that definitely would have helped Evenepoel's
Oh
cases.
yeah.
But they've got a team really built around Remco, and then they've also are taking Tim Merlier and Bert van Leerberger as his single, last man sprint train. So a little divided loyalties there, but mostly built around Remco. And I think that's going to be tough we'll talk about the sprinters later, but Merlier does not have a lot of support like you see on some of the other sprint teams. It's really built around Remco.
Your other GC aspirational team also that is bringing a sprinter is Red Bull Grant. So they've got Roglic, who will be their lead, and then an ascendant Florian Lipowitz, fresh off a strong showing at Dauphiné, and then Vlasov, Lawrence Pithy, a classics specialist, big boy. Gianni Moscon, Mick Van Dyke, Danny Van Poppel for the lead out, I guess, for Jordi Meus. So a similar approach to Quick Step, where they're going to carve out a couple spots for some sprint.
Yeah.
Um, it,
Which I think this team could crush in the first week with the Dunkirk stages. Like uh, Moscone, Van Poppel, Meos, Van Dyke, Pithy are all guys that do well in the spring. So I think they should hopefully lead their climbers well through those stages, as well as potentially get some opportunities for themselves. Um, it is divided loyalties, I guess you could say, between Roglic and Lipovitz, and then Vlasov. Um, how's that going to shake out on GC if Lipovitz is doing better than Roglic? Whole deal. So we'll see.
Are we making too much of that? Is that like a storyline that won't necessarily play out? Um, I don't know. That's one thing to think through. Um,
I would say this is the least confident I've been in Roglic going into any Grand Tour that I've picked. Like I
yeah,
didn't even consider him.
and the percentage takes on that app back that up. Alpecin is bringing Vanderpool, Jasper Philipsen, and Caden Groves, Grant.
Whew.
What in the heck is going on here?
Never in my life.
What the Trident?
Yeah.
What are they doing here?
So I think it's I think this is a good potential opportunity for Vanderpool to actually go for the green jersey. We'll go into that more later as well when we talk about sprinters in the green jersey, but he looked really good at the Dauphiné in terms of competing for that. Philipsen maybe has been a little bit off since his crash earlier in the spring. And then we know Caden Gross does well at Grand Tour. I think that I mean we'll see if Groves can slot into a support role or if he doesn't thrive in that opportunity.
Are they trying to be like the new Wolf Pack where they just bring three or four hitters that can, and they're just going to gobble up stages? I mean, if you look at the first week, though, even if they do want to go for Phillipson for green, a strategy could be that Vanderpool cannibalizes and takes away a lot of those points on those because I think a lot of green jersey points are on offer on more dynamic, versatile sprint stages in the early half of the race
Yeah.
or the early third. And so, are they thinking, okay, Vanderpool goes for that, um, cannibalizes a lot of those points, takes them away from Philipson's competitors, and then Philipson can come along strong, um, if Vanderpool fades on the points chase when we get to the traditional flat sprint stages. I don't know, man. Gonna be an interesting one.
Yeah. It'll be fun to
Um,
watch for sure.
yeah. Where do you want to go next?
So
Trek?
they're right next to each other on the start list. So I want to compare Lidl Trek and Intermarché Wanty. So they're both seemingly built around their sprinter and not any climbers. So Lidl Trek is bringing Tunes, Nice, Stuyven, Katsoni, Milan, Skelmosa, Scoins, and Simmons. So they do have a climber GC type Skelmosa who could be someone we pick for a KOM. Uh, but everybody else is pretty much there as a sprint train, or support for Milan. And I think that's smart. I mean, he's one of the best sprinters in the world. And I think there's a few guys that could really capitalize off breakaways as well. Nice, Scoins, and Simmons. So I think it's a fun team. Some people might be disappointed that there's not more climbing support for Skelmosa, but I think it's cool. Uh, any thoughts there?
Um, just that Atibo Nice is a really intriguing presence in this year's Tour de France. I'm very interested to see. Um, but he can compete in stages that Milan can't. Remember, I had that revelation earlier on in one of our episodes. Like, hold up, Milan is no Mads Pedersen. He
Yeah.
likes he can't get around and do a climbing effort like a Pedersen can, but Nice can. Thibaut Nice, he's very nice at
I
those kind of stages.
would
So
also say that Milan is a better climber than Merlier. I don't know if he's better than Philipsen, but Um, he's
Yeah.
not Pedersen, but he's not a slouch either. Uh, Looking at Intermarché, um, they're all in for Benny Girmay, who won the green jersey last year. Think it'll be a much tougher title defense this season, but I really like this team. Classics heavy, sprint train heavy. It'll be cool to see what Louis Barre could do. We've picked him a lot this season. He's 400 credits now. Um, he's looked really good in the warm up races for the tour. Um, Georg Zimmerman just won the German national championships. So I think we're going to see a lot from Intermarché.
Yeah. I just it's a team with a very clear focus, clearly designed for Gourmet. I forgot that he won the green jersey last year. Um, so my apologies to Benny. But it's a different. I feel like it's just such a different. There's a much deeper sprint field this year, and there's a lot more riders that are well, like a Matthew Vanderpool to just mention one that's just can do all the things that Gourmet can do and do them better.
Yep.
So I don't know. Where next?
We could kind of zoom through some of these other, you want to call them contenders or pretenders. Um, Movistar, bringing Enric Mas. They've got a lot of young, exciting riders around him in Castrillo and Rubio and Romeo. Um, I think they'll do something, but I don't know if an Enric Mas podium is a serious consideration like it might be at the Vuelta. Um, but I'd look out for Romeo, Rubio, and others there. Jaco, Ben O'Connor, he's struggled to be consistent in Grand Tours. We've seen some flashes of brilliance. He's got a pretty good team around him with Luke Plapp and Mauro Schmidt. Luke Durbridge as a turbo durbo to lead things out. Eddie Dunbar, great climber, but they've also bring in Groenewegen for sprints, and they've got good leadouts for him and Luca Mesketch and others. Um, Picnic Post-NL. So they've got Warren Barguil, who's won the KOM before, but is more in the twilight of his career. I think the big name there for them is Oscar Onley. They're also bringing a sprinter, though, with Tobias Anderson. So,
Yeah, Only's intriguing. At that credit um status, I think he's at 800. Um, I think he could ride in to a top 10 again. Did he finish top 10 last year? Uh,
um,
I
let's see what his
think,
previous results are. Previous Grand Tours, no, he is definitely not finishing the top 10. Um,
okay.
he
I
was
think he
top
could
10.
this year though.
He was top 10 in the youth last year, but he was
Hmm.
39th on GC. And then he DNF'd the Vuelta in 23, but different rider now. I would
Yeah.
not factor that into your considerations. Another
I'd like to
interesting
see him
point.
go for KOM.
Yeah, I'd rather see him go for stages in KOM.
Yeah.
And they need UCI points. Picnic Post and L does. So that's another reason for him to go for KOM instead of a middling GC placing. You also got Bittner and Andreessen, which are no slouches when it comes to sprinting. And I think I've heard other people talk about them doing a like two-pronged sprint approach where they try and like mop up like fifth and sixth place on sprint stages and just get a bunch of points. Um, and then Frank Vanderbook, who was second on stage one last year. Um, Look out for him too.
Yeah. Sign Rider. Um, what about Grant? We can't not go over teams and talk about your favorite Uno X. They are,
Ooh.
dude, this is a strong team.
Yeah. Uh, this is a great looking team. Their leader is Magnus Cort, who we've seen Wins. I think he's won a stage in all three Grand Tours now, mostly in the Vuelta, but a couple Tour de France stages. Soren Warren's called big sprinter classics type, should do well in week one. Andreas Leknessund, who we've seen in breakaways, and I believe he wore the pink jersey for a day in the past at the Giro. The Johannesson brothers, Jonas Abrahamson, who's been on the best fantasy team the last two seasons, and then rounding it out with Marcus Holgaard and Sean Friedheim. Friedheim's had a great season in the sprints, and Holgaard usually goes well on KOM and kind of breakaway stuff. So I think it's a great team. I'd definitely be tempted to take someone like Leknessund, who's only 200 credits too.
Yeah. Um, and what about? Well, it's not really. Ineos is bringing Geraint Thomas, but I feel like
Yeah,
there's health. Is there health issues? Something's up with him. And then I think also there's oh, they dropped him.
they
Thought
dropped
they had
Duplusky. He crashed,
Diplovsky on there last time I
but
checked. Okay.
Samwise Watson has slotted in.
Oh, hey yo.
So they've got Watson, Swift, and Lawrence.
Updating roster right
Yeah.
now.
So Watson, Swift, and
Oh,
Lawrence should be really interesting for week one, as well as Ghana. Uh, I'm not excited about their GC ambitions with Aaron Spin Rodriguez and Thomas. Uh, but I do like their opportunity for breakaways and stages. And of course, time trials with Ghana. Yeah. So Ineos, not super excited about them, but I think there's an opportunity for some individual performances there. Uh, we always got to talk about the French teams, right? So
yeah.
Groupama, Total Energy, and Decathlon. Hopefully, I didn't leave one out there. Oh, Cofidis, sorry. Um, so I think we simped Decathlon, right? Unfortunately, your boy Dorian Godon did not make the final team. He did just win the French Nats, though. But um,
Still a lot of great names on here though.
yeah, uh, Felix Gall, Clement
Hmm.
Berthet, Bastien Tronchon. A lot of names that we've picked this season. So who
Yeah.
stands out to you there?
Sanchong. And I wish that Felix Gall would go for KOM, but I fear he won't. And then Bruno Amaral for maybe some breakaways, like the more harder, longer breakaway stages. Um,
Yep.
yeah, I like that team, but there's so much baggage for these French teams.
I also left out Archaea. Sorry. And they're
Ooh,
they're on the ropes with how I guess sponsorship, UCI points, the whole deal. But let's talk about Cofidis first. So they've got Brown
Iron Brewery.
Cockard and Aramburu. So it should go well in week one. Um, no other like huge names that I'm really excited about there. An aging Jan Izagira. Um, but
Bookman.
potential breakaway win for them. Archaea, I do like this team though. I like Kevin Vacalon. We've seen him go really well. He's got a climbing support there with Christian Rodriguez. They are bringing Honor Demar for the sprints. So my big question there is Vacalon going to go for stages in KOM, or is he going to try in top 10 GC after his performance at Swiss? TBD.
Yeah, he'll probably go for GC, which would be a
Unfortunately.
bummer. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mathis Lebert to be a fun name
Yep.
for. All right.
Uh, and then finally rounded out Total Energy. I think this is a really strong team. You've got Bergado, your discount Alaphilippe, Emilian Janaire, one of my favorite riders. I hope he wins a sprint or a breakaway, small reduced bunch sprint. Anthony Turgis was on the best team last year. He won a stage, and that was good enough for a 200 credit rider to make it on the best team. Jordan Jagat, um, and then a few other names I'm not going to try and pronounce. So, yeah, I like Jenner or Turgis, especially Turgis might be 400 credits, but this is your opportunity to pick up some 200 credit guys on these French teams.
Yeah. So just transitioning into fantasy perspective, looking at points, credits. I think for me, there's a lot of clarity around the GC race. Um, Not too many questions there. I mean, I suppose we could see something interesting to round out the top 10 there. I think the sprint field is a lot more interesting than last, and will be a harder pick for the green jersey battle. I think also KOM. KOM is something I always struggle with, kind of picking who's going to go for that, and who will win.
Yeah, because
Of
it's kind of
course, I
a
mean, I'm not counting like, Pog.
yeah, no
You know what I
accidental
mean?
KOMs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, and the problem with KOM is it sometimes is a second or third week strategy, like we saw with
yeah.
Carapaz last year, where
And
you
often they don't know they're going to go for it until they're in a position to go for it. Like Carapaz last year might not. Well, did he say he probably did? But I feel like there can also be a guy that it's like, well, I guess I'll just go for it.
yeah,
I'm gonna
I
doing
I want
well.
I want a breakaway stage. I mopped up a bunch of points. Let's invest in this now.
Yeah,
Well, the
yeah.
categories, the big
Categories. So,
event.
so starting at the top, with our 1,200 spend, obviously a longer list given it being the tour. We've got 5,000. Sorry, we've got what's our budget for Grand Tour? Is it
Six
6,000?
6K
Yeah.
baby.
So you're going to want to spend some money here in this category. Um, it can lose you. It can completely eliminate you from bragging rights with your friends, but you're probably not going to win here either, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a must participate category, but if you leave someone off, you're done for. Like if you left off Pedersen at the Giro, for example.
oh, dude, salt. Um,
Salt in the
but
wound. So
yeah, and as we talked
obviously,
about last time, Grant, the trend is here to have more, and not less in this category. I
so
mean, you can write
obviously
off the
at the top, you've got Pogačar
yeah,
and Jonas, and then Remco falls into this category. You've got two overpriced people in this category, in my opinion, in Roglic and Carlos Rodriguez, and then Remco, Philipsen, Van Aert, and Almeida.
and Phillips and Van Aert being your only sprinty. Van Aert
Yeah,
is like a Swiss Army knife, of course, can do almost everything. And Jasper Philipsen is the only sprinter at 1,200 credits in a great field of sprinters. I think that for that reason alone, um, I'm staying away from a sprinter at this point category when I know there's plenty of good ones at lower um, prices.
yep,
Um, I think, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to be said. I'm putting them in order of must takes: Pog, then Jonas, Remco, um, probably after that, and then everyone else. You could have a discussion. I think Almeida. Yeah, it's hard to spend 1,200 credits on somebody that's on the same team as Pog when they're very focused on the race for him.
yeah. If you're
So
taking Carlos Rodriguez, I would question your sanity, but rest of that list, and to an extent Roglic, but rest of that list, I would say are up for debate.
you can make a lot more arguments to take Roglic than C-Rod. I mean, even looking at current season point scoring, actually Almeida has scored the most fantasy points season to date, with 570 points. And then to your point, Carlos Rodriguez has only scored 85. There's going to be 200 credit riders that line up in the Tour de France that has scored more fantasy points than Carlos Rodriguez. So don't pick him.
Yeah, yeah. Which quick aside there, I did like a nerd email the app, and that number you see next to their name, that's like their, I guess, weighted score. It's not like their raw number of fantasy points this season.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Like
so
weighted, like it's almost like a PCS type score, right?
yeah,
How
um,
do they figure it?
it has to do with the quality of the start list, which makes sense. Um, so I guess you get less points per se if the start list of the race was weaker.
Yeah. Um, Thank you for that clarification, Grant. All right, 1,000 points. So we're going to see more sprinters showing up here. You've got Johnny Milan, Tim Merlier, Caden Groves, Biniam Girmay, all present and accounted for at this point. And then you've got your sort of climbing, ultra climbing domestiques. You've got Simon Yates, you've got Jorgensen, Enrique Mas, Skelmos, Ben O'Connor, and Adam Yates as well. So, what's your anybody you like? Who do you think are your best takes at this category, Grant?
Yeah, I think this is where your sprinter is going to have to come from, and you got to decide between Merlon or Mulier. I wouldn't take both. And then Germay should also be considered, but
Well, let's
these are
have
good.
the discussion. What out of those three, what are the arguments for each? I think starting maybe with Benny because he was last year's green jersey winner. Um, I think the big argument for him is, that he's done it before. Past performance has been strong. He'd be protecting his title as green jersey winner. He does have the team to back him up, as we kind of talked through just recently. A lot of people are taking him, but only 4% of users, and I think that has to do with just we've got a much more robust field here, and I don't think the dynamics are going to set up favorably for Girmay, as they did last year when you've got a Vanderpool showing up.
Yep.
Um,
He can also sprint uphill, which could benefit him in a few of these stages.
yeah, but Vanderpool can do that better.
Yeah, I'm just talking at the 1,000 credit category, though. If you're going to
Okay,
compare him
okay.
like
Yeah,
for
that's
like
true.
with
Yeah,
Merlier,
Vanderpool's not in there. Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
Um, so Milan, his benefit is, we've seen him win the points jersey at the Giro before. He hasn't, I don't think, competed in the tour before. Um, he's one of the best sprinters in the world, but so is Tim Merlier. I think Tim Merlier is probably actually the better sprinter right now, but Milan is right there and has a better team. So I think that's the reasoning for taking Milan over Merlier.
Right. Um, and then of these also ran, it sounds so brutal to say, but I mean, these are all great riders. And just talking from a fantasy perspective, I'm not really, I mean, I think if you wanted to take someone from here, you might look at Skelmos.
Yeah,
I think your Simon Yates and your Jorgensen, they're clocking in at the office. They're not here to score, to win stages or race for
yeah.
anything. Ben O'Connor, um, be interesting to see. You know what? He should go for KOM.
He should, and he should also be 800 credits, but
Yeah,
that's
he's a
neither here
little
nor there.
overpriced. Yeah, I don't like the value there for O'Connor. Also, his team. It's, they're all good. I think they're it's like Jayco's best riders, but it's not like,
But
hey,
it's
let's
Jacob's
design a
best
team.
riders.
Yeah, let's not. But I mean, but it's not like a UAE or a Visser where it's like they've designed and recruited and paid for riders
It
for the
wasn't
purpose
built
of
in a
winning Tour de
lab.
France. Yeah, wasn't built for Tour de France. Skelmos, not a lot of people were on him. He scored 114 points in fantasy in 2023. Didn't ride it last year. 2.6% of users are taking him this year. Yeah, I mean, I think you take him over an Enrique Mas or anyone else. All right, you want to go to 800, which I think is the way your teams are going to shape out. I think if you're going to take two 1200 credit riders and potentially and then 1,000, you might be able to take another 800
Yep.
rider on your roster. And I think there's a lot of debates to be had at this category, Grant.
Yeah, this is a
You
big
know,
category. I don't think we can list out all the names. Um, I guess the ones that pop off the page are Oscar Onley, Kevin Vauquelin, Roman Gregoire, Matthew Van Der Poel, Florian Leibovitz, Lenny Martinez, and Felix Gall.
yeah, I mean, and you're not even mentioning the Santiago Buitragos or the Filippo Gannas on here. But I do think those are the high points. I think Hershey, Sepkus is right there at the bottom with that algorithmic weighted score that you explained earlier. But like he's a domestique, Delis, much better. There's much better sprinters you can take. Hershey hasn't looked great lately. Lassoff and Groenewegen, names like that. I'm not really excited to take. But yeah, to me, Florian Lipowitz is somebody I think a lot of people are thinking hard about. You've got almost 30% of users taking him. He could be he's like their secondary GC rider for Bora and arguably could be, the more ascendant rider of the future. So that's an intriguing pick, probably for a lot of folks thinking, hey, could this guy finish fourth, maybe even third or fifth in GC? Um, could backfire though. They could play it straight down the middle and just have him be a mountain domestique for Roglic. But Roglic could also crash in week one. But
Yeah, there's
they've got that strong they've got the let's prevent Roglic from crashing in week one roster.
they do. They've got the phalanx of riders around him. So what it's funny we didn't even mention him technically on the weighted score. He's the top of this category, Alexander Vlasov. He also rides for Red Bull. Um, I just think I would stray away from him based off.
He's
I mean,
gonna be a dumb.
yeah, he's going to be a domestique. I mean, he won the KOM at Tour de Suisse, but that was probably more of a here's your opportunity to wear a jersey before we go to the tour, and your Roglic's domestique. So,
Hmm.
whereas Lipovitz seems like he's going to play more of that younger, let's see what you can do kind of role.
And he'll qualify for the white jersey.
Yep, that's a great point.
Um,
Yeah, that's another
so
factor to consider. We haven't really talked about is who are these guys that are kind of double earning points where they're going to be up there on GC, but they're also going to qualify for youth points.
Conley
Um,
will as well, and has clearly stated he wants to win stages and see if he can hang around. Vanderpool, I mean, he's going to be the favorite in so many of these. He'll be the favorite in like three or four stages in this Tour de France, right?
yes, I think he has a big opportunity to do what Mads Pedersen did at the Giro in week one of the tour. Um,
Yeah.
He's great, an opportunity to win multiple stages. Definitely wear the green jersey, potentially wear the yellow jersey. Um, it could be a big boon for you there if you have Vanderpool on your team, and he does that.
All right. Taking out Vanderpool, you have to pick one of Lipowitz, Lenny Martinez, Oscar Onley. Who do you take?
Right now, I'm saying Onley, mainly because of what we talked about. He has indicated that he wants to go for stages, and less so GC. Whereas Leibovitz is going to hang on to a GC posting, and potentially Martinez as well, given that he's French and it's kind of contractually obligated to go for GC at the
Yeah.
tour. So that's why I would lean for Onley on a fantasy point perspective. I think Leibovitz could potentially finish higher on GC, but I like Onley from a fantasy point perspective.
Okay. Um, I'm I've been burned on the past on I thought Only looked really great at for the Swiss. He got third overall, scored a bunch of points. The I've been burned in the past taking somebody that's performed really well at Swiss or Dauphiné, reading too much into it. And so I'm hesitant for on him for the same reason. And I probably should apply the same logic to Lipowitz. I think Lenny Martinez could take the KON jersey. So I guess I would go him, but it's funny on my current draft of my team I have Lipowitz.
Yeah.
That I might just switch it right now.
Yeah, it's a tough category. That's one of those 11th hour kind of switch your teams sort of
Yeah.
deal. So,
Okay. 600.
which
Doesn't get
quickly,
too much easier, but a little bit easier.
if you actually do want to, I pulled up the actual raw point score for the season. Um, Onley has 527, Martinez has 524, Gregoire has 511, Lipovitz has 501.
They're all right there.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
flip a coin.
Yeah.
All right,
I
600.
I think Leibowitz is exciting, and probably why I had him on my first draft. But um, maybe would lean towards Martinez because that Roglic is there and Roglic is their leader. So
Yep.
I think he'll hang around, but ultimately he'll be a good employee of Red Bull Inc. over
Hmm.
there and protect the investment for Roglic. 600 Stora Destroyer, Timer Arnsman, Katie Pablo Castrillo, Ben Healy, um, and then you got your Jalas
Yeah.
for Tudor, who we didn't talk about in the team wrap up. You've got your Nilson Powless from EF. Um, Jordy Meus, did I already say him from Red Bull? And Soren Warrenskold from Tudor. Um, so some names that leap off the page there. Anyone I'm not mentioning? Thibaut Nice is also someone I gotta. Man, I'm just really intrigued to see what he's gonna do.
Yeah.
Um,
I
Jonas
mean,
Abrahamson scored 195 points in last year's tour. But not a lot of people are taking him. Only 2% of users are taking him.
I think this is a trap category, if you will, where it's like some shiny names here. They're a little cheaper at 600 credits. Boomer bust. Like a name that appeals to me is like Ben Healy. What if he has an amazing week 2 or something like that?
Yeah.
and scores 200 points? Or what if he does absolutely nothing and like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's hard to say.
So to me, you're
Um,
shopping. To me, you're shopping here in this category as well. If you opted out from like taking two of the GC favorites, you've got a little bit more room left on the budget, and then you're still like intrigued by some of these names. But
yeah, I
I
mean,
agree with you. It has been robust.
theoretically, if you've already spent your money in the other categories, this isn't an option for you. You're
Yeah.
going straight to 400 or 200.
But if you are shopping here, I don't know. I mean,
I
Abrahamson, like I said, but before, I mean, um, that's a huge amount of points
It's a lot of
that he scored
inflation.
last year.
Yeah.
So I think he's the most intriguing for me. Well, I'm sorry, the most intriguing rider for me is Thibaut Nice. This is his first tour. Um, he's been 12 times on the best team this year possible. Um, I think he could win some of these more versatile, dynamic stages. He can win out of a breakaway. He can win in a bunch sprint on a punchy finish. And there's a few of those to be had in the early half of the race. EF has done a good job historically getting a stage win. Nielsen Powless is looking really good now. He's kind of matured and crystallized his status as like a stage hunter, classic specialist with that a lot of good racecraft that he's showing this year. So, I think if you are shopping in that category, he's someone to look at. You could also you could also do like a little counter move on your green jersey tactic, and maybe you're going bargain shopping and taking Jordy Mayes, and you're staying away from
Yeah.
those big spends on a Jasper or a Milan.
Yeah. Or one of the great dilemmas in fantasy cycling is Danny Van Poppel a lead out or a sprinter? I still haven't found out. So, no, I
Yeah.
think this category is tough because, yeah, like we said, might have already spent your points. But I think there's two names here that I'll close with. One is Michael Storer, a legitimate contender for KOM. We've seen him win Grand Tour stages before. Only 1.8% of users are currently picking him. So I like that name. And then we didn't even mention him, but he's the top of the table here. Leonard Van at Velt. He hasn't performed great lately, but if he really finds his legs, like he's a potential top 10 GC, maybe a stage win, or one of those guys that gets in a breakaway and wears the jersey for a couple days, you know?
Right. All right. 400.
My
Luis
guy.
Bade, show favorite.
Yeah, Barre and Janer are in this category. Two show favorites there. Einer Rubio is only 400 credits. I mean, he's a potential mountain stage win sort of deal.
Luke
Um,
Platt
yep.
could also
But
win a stage.
Ivan Romeo,
Yeah.
Spanish national champ.
A lot, dude. People are people are into Romeo.
Yeah, almost 25%.
Yeah.
One fourth of
Which how much
users.
of that sometimes I wonder is that a lot of people like sorting by MVR and
Yes,
just taking who's at the top?
I think so. They did the
Yeah.
most valuable rider last 30 days, 200 to
Yeah.
400 credits, and just hit the little green plus button. Um, Mike Woods in this category. I mean, we've seen him win some pretty big Tour de France stages before, Vuelta stages. Um,
Not
Turgi,
so
like
mid, Maro Schmid, Swiss champ. Did he win again? Is he our
he
Swiss
did.
champ?
Yep, back to
Okay.
back, baby. Uh,
He on
Turgi
my
was on the
time too.
yeah. Turgi was on the best team last year. Alex Baudon for EF. He's kind of like a young French hope. Uh, we've seen him do some impressive performances. He was second on a pretty big stage at the Tour de Romandie to Lucky Lorenzo Fortunato.
Yeah.
He's done some good classics performances.
He says this is his first Tour de France. 400 points to me is like, and
It's
you're riding the Tour for
a
first.
little
Yeah.
pricey.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna throw a name at you here. I'm gonna be surprised if he's not on your team. Fred Wright, 400 credits.
Right side Fred.
2022, he scored 110 fantasy points of the tour.
In 2022. He hasn't done it since though, has he?
No, he's not. But he was top 10.
DNF.
He was top 10 on two stages at the Dauphiné and was ninth at Paris-Roubaix this year. So flashes of
He is not
brilliance.
on my team.
It's disappointing, John.
It's just like sometimes I feel obligated to take these riders, the memes, but yeah, not
Yeah.
on my team this year. All right, 200 credits. Um,
Get your goggles out. You're gonna go diving. Go look for
we're
some
getting a lot of
coins.
we're getting a lot of mileage out of that joke here, but
Yeah.
it still goes. Yeah, man. I mean, there's some there's some good riders down here, but um, nothing that really, there's not that rider where I'm like, I can't believe that they're only 200. You know what I mean? Um, we already mentioned Thranchon. I think he's um somebody I suspect will show up on both of our teams. Frenchman. Um,
Yeah. So I filtered for, since this is such a big category, I'm gonna start implementing some filters here. So most valuable rider last 30 days. Top three are Quinn Simmons, Bastien Tranchon, and Hugo Page. Some
yeah,
good names there.
yeah. But Hugo's going to be working for Benny. I like Simmons again. I think Trek is there to wreck things up.
Yep.
They're like a wrecking crew. They're strong. They got lots of things going on. They don't have the burden of the GC thing going on. And Milan is stable and steady and still ascendant in his career. We'll have a nice lead out for him on the true sprint stages, and then everybody else can just go and just just hit people in the face for these other non-climbing stages. I don't really have a is I guess Consoni a climber? I
No, he's a
mean,
lead out.
oh yeah, okay. Well,
So
um,
I mean, we got July 4th coming up this weekend. Tour de France is starting. Quinn Simmons, let freedom ring.
let it ring. Um, Bigly. He's gonna win bigly. Um, Wawa Barguil, he's old now, but Mathis Lebert is somebody you might want to take for a potential dark horse stage win. Um, and I think who else do I like?
Oh, we mentioned
Joseph
Leknes.
Blackmore.
Yep. And we mentioned Leknessund earlier. I mean, pretty insane. He's only 200 credits right now. That might be my most surprising 200 credit rider.
Yeah. Yep. Or also might be intriguing is George Zimmerman on Intermarché, perhaps.
Yep.
He's done well in the past. He didn't score a whole lot of points last year, but he got 62 in 2023. He was kind of featuring in that polka dot the KOM race. Um, yeah. Well, do you want to share? You want to? Lawrence Rex too. But I mean, he hasn't really done much. He hasn't really shown much. In the tour. A lot of people like Tobias Foss, but I don't really know why. Um,
Maybe just for some time trial points.
yeah. Okay, who you got, Grant?
All right. So, no surprise here. Today, Pogačar. I am also going to take Jonas, um, just because consistency. As we mentioned on our previous episode, Pogačar has been on the best team every tour he has done, and so has Jonas. So 5 for 5 and 4 for 4, respectively. Um, so I think you got to take them. I'm going to take a sprinter with my 1,000 credits, and that's going to be Jonathan Milan. Uh, as we've belabored to the point, he's got a great team around him, and I think they're really going to crush it. 800 credits. I'm going to take Matthew Vanderpool. I think this is finally the year he's going to actually go for the green jersey and not let me down. I've picked him in the past, and he's done nothing at the tour. So I think this is the year. Oscar Onley, hopefully he goes for KOM and stage wins. I think he's got a great opportunity there. Louis Barre, um, I I think he's got a big opportunity in week one, and he's just a strong rider. We've seen a lot from him this season. Um, he looked pretty good at the Dauphiné. So like that, Quinn Simmons, as we just discussed, he's only 200 credits. He's a breakaway guy. I think he can mop up a lot of points in those breakaways. A name we have not mentioned at all today. Only 0.5% of users have him. Brent Van Moor. He's a classics rider for Lotto. Um, this is just one of those like, I'm sending a flyer. Hopefully, going to get some serious points arbitrage. Really, nobody else has him. I think he can go well in week one and be up there on those Dunkirk stages. Honestly, I was picking somebody who's done well at the Tour of Dunkirk before. So like, or 4 days of Dunkirk. So if you look at Brent Van Moor this season, he was fourth at Omloop. And he's had several other good classics performances like Grand Prix de Denon. I mean, we're going to start in Lille. So that's my reasoning there. And then, as we just mentioned as well, Bastien Tronchon rides for Decathlon. He does well on hills, classics, flats. He had a great Dauphiné. He won Trobor Lyon. And I think he's a great pick. And that's my team.
Nice. I like it. Got some overlaps. I'm also taking Pog. But instead of Jonas, I'm
Oh,
taking Remco. I messed it up. Remco.
Remco Evenepoel.
Yeah, I tried to do it. I think Jonas will finish second. Um, but Remco um, will score more points. I think he's going to win the time trial. And I think he'll win another stage also. Whereas I don't think Jonas is going to win any stages.
Ooh. I mean, that's a fair assessment, but still a hot take. I like how you're
Well,
thinking
I
about
mean,
it, though. You're thinking about
yeah,
it from the fantasy perspective. You're not letting the sentimental or like
yeah,
oh, Jonas is going to finish second on GC, probably. But like
yeah,
points wise, who's going to score more points? Potentially Remco, yes.
that's right. Grant, does Remco still qualify for the white jersey this year?
He
He's
does.
25. Yeah, and so I think for that, I think he'll get some more points for that too. So I've got Johnny Milan, but I've oscillated between him and some of the other 1,000 points riders. I think you could make a real case that Merlier could score more points, but I'm going to go with Milan. This is his first Tour de France, Grant. So there's a little bit of, how's he going to deal? This is the show.
Yep.
This is it. How's he going to deal with the pressure and all of the chaos that goes on in that bubble with the media and all that. So be interesting to see, but I'm going to roll with them, subject to change. I could probably like flip him to somebody else, to Moliere in the 11th hour or something.
Also,
Vander,
another point for him, if he happens to win stage one,
Mm.
he's also going to take the youth jersey. Milan will.
Ooh,
So
there you go.
another
So he could
wrinkle.
have green. He'll have green.
He'll have everything except KOM.
Yeah, green, white, and yellow. Vanderpool, I think for reasons aforementioned, I think this is going to be the year where he goes nuts. He DNF'd back in 2021, but still scored like 250 points when he wants to. And I think that was the retro kits, the poppy poo
It
poo.
was
Was that
all,
the poo poo year?
yeah, it was. It was also Mur de Bretagne, which is going to
Yeah,
feature again in this first
oh,
week.
exactly. Yeah, and I think we're going to see him. I think they can rationalize their approach to the whole 3 week race by saying Vanderpool can shine in the beginning, and then maybe Jasper kind of comes in and sweeps up. Um, and they're bros too. Like I feel like you know Jasper would be happy to let Vanderpool take the spotlight. Well,
Yep.
Vanderpool's the biggest star out of those two, I think. So, um, the bigger brand for sure. Um, which, by the way, if you're not following Vanderpool on Instagram, he's really crystallized.
Yeah.
Like
Also,
what?
no one, I don't think Richard Mille and Lamborghini of Belgium are sponsoring Jasper Philipsen. So if you want to talk about star power,
Yeah, he brings a certain like Wimbledon like F1 aesthetic to his like
yeah.
posts. It's hilarious. Um, Letty Martinez. Going back to our discussion at the 800 credit range. To me, just as with Milan, he's a little bit interchangeable. I could oscillate between him or Onley or Lipo. Is it Lipowitz? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got Ana Rubio, only 400 credits. This is also his first Tour de France, but I could see him getting in the mix on the KOM jersey competition. And I think Lenny Martinez is my pick for the KOM as well. And then Quinn Simmons, he's going to bring that American diesel engine to
Mm-hmm.
France.
It's going to be rolling
Uh,
coal.
yeah. Um, Bastien Tranchon, um, very dynamic rider. I think he could rack up some points early on. And then kind of a roll of the dice. Joseph Blackmore, also his first Tour de France. But he's had a good season, did well in the Tour de Suisse. I think he was top 20 in GC, but had a top 10 finish on stage 7. Bit of an up and comer rider, and I think there's going to be a lot of freedom on that team. But yeah, I might play around with that. That's kind of like my last spot, so I might switch and go on that one as well. So that's who I've got so far. Um, and looking forward to watching.
Yeah, man. I like it.
Yeah.
Also, a recommendation to the listeners is if if it's a 200 credit rider that does have like 25 or 30% picked, it's like, are you going to have a differentiating factor by picking them?
Mhm.
Probably not. Whereas if you can find some diamonds in the rough like that, or that, less than 3% have picked them, that there's some big opportunity there.
Yeah. Well, Grant, I don't know if we're going to talk again before the stage. I know there's been whispers maybe we'll do a part 3. I don't know if we will. I don't know if we'll have time, but um, our plan to everybody listening is to check in, I think, once a week and take stock of things and talk about the big storylines. I always enjoy those episodes, Grant, because you know, we could talk about fantasy, but we can also just react to and just
Yeah.
be fans and just talk about the storylines as they're unfolding and um, talk about the moments that have been fun for us to watch, or have a debate about something that's emerging in the race. So we'll check in with everybody and have those pods. I'm not going to be out of the country like I was for the Giro, so I'm
Yeah.
excited to be able to really watch as much as possible. And you can follow along. Grant, thank you so much for putting out some great content the last couple of weeks. Really good to look at that data. We've got that published on X and on Instagram underneath the handle Listen to SCP, and that's the number 2. Of course, you're probably listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but if you want to use YouTube, we've got the audio posted there as well. And we have a media league, so don't forget to pick a team. Encourage your friends to play. Grant, I got a couple of buddies that are like wanting to get in,
Yeah.
haven't really paid attention to pro cycling, but Tour has come around for them, and they're wanting to kind of follow along. And I've recommended that they pick a team just so they can be invested with some of these riders and
Yeah.
follow along more closely throughout the race. So I encourage anybody who's listening to this to do the same with their friends. Great way for new people to discover the sport and have a vested interest in what's unfolding before their eyes on the race. So yeah, and of course encourage them to listen to the pod.
Yeah. If they want to learn about the key characters involved, share this podcast with them. And yeah, if y'all are enjoying it, hit us up on Twitter or X and let us know what you're thinking. What are the games you're playing too besides cycling, fantasy, or Vela games? We want to hear it.
Yes. All right. Talk to y'all later, and good luck with your picks. Bye, Grant.
See ya.